Hello fellow crafters! Welcome to Home Buddy! Today I'm going to show you how I made this hat according to this 1920s magazine tutorial. I started by cutting my pattern pieces from a piece of green felt. Since the whole hat took less than a quarter yard of fabric, I would recommend trying to find a felt that's decent quality. The center of the crown consists of a circle 9 inches in diameter, which seems excessive until you consider that this measurement includes a ½ inch seam allowance all around. The side portion of the crown is made up by the length of my own head circumference, along with an additional 4 inches to make up the box pleat detail at the back. For me, this meant I ended up with a strip of fabric 4 inches wide by 26 inches long. To create the brim, I printed out the instructions for the hat onto regular-sized printer paper and cut out the brim pattern using scissors, before pinning and tracing it onto a folded piece of felt. That way, when I cut it out, it was perfectly symmetrical. Last but not least, I measured and cut out 2 strips of felt, each measuring 2.5 inches wide by 9 inches long. These pieces, along with the box pleat, will form that lovely bow detail at the back of the hat. To assemble the hat, I folded my long side piece in half to create a loop, and marked exactly 1 inch from the fabric's edge. Then I placed a pin at my mark before folding the excess fabric over to one side. I marked the next 2 inches to the right of the pin and used those marks as a guideline to form another pleat facing in the opposite direction. You will know you've done this step correctly if, when you turn your fabric right side out, you see a perfectly symmetrical box pleat on the other side. I marked a ½ inch seam allowance on both the crown as well as the top of my loop of fabric before pinning and sewing them together by hand. You could use a machine for this step, but it's honestly easier to do it by hand because you can hold the fabric shape open as you go. Once that was done, I pinned the brim of my hat about a ½ inch above the edge of the wrong side of my loop of fabric, and carefully tacked it into place so that my stitches wouldn't show through to the other side. Although it wasn't mentioned in the pattern instructions, I decided to also sew the 2 edges of the inside of the box pleat together. You could arguably skip this step since it doesn't make any difference to the outside appearance, but it just feels neater to not have those unsecured bits of felt flapping around inside. Then I trimmed the seam allowance along the top of the crown before turning my hat right side out. The last step in the instructions is to attach the small side pieces onto either side of the box pleat to form a bow. I spent a fair bit of time finagling with different angles before I felt confident enough to secure the ties in place. I was also careful to never let my needle pass through the top of the box pleat so my stitches would be invisible to the naked eye. So I tried the hat on, and honestly, I thought the result was pretty cute, but I don't know. Does anyone else think I kinda look like Paddington Bear? So I tried flipping the brim down, and I thought it fit my features a lot better. It kind of reminded me of those cloche hats you always see in vintage pictures. However, the brim's a little long for the style, so I think I'll have to trim it. Personally, I think the lip of felt you see when the brim of the hat is folded down is actually really cute, but it's not exactly period appropriate, so I'm gonna cover it up with some velvet ribbon. I also decided to tack down the ends of the bow, since they were looking pretty floppy every time my head turned. The final trim of the brim was a little terrifying since I was low-key afraid I'd accidentally cut too much and have to start all over, but I just made sure to go super slowly and shave off narrow strips one at a time. I gave it one last check for any loose threads or wrinkles before trying it on, and oh my god, I like it so much better now. One tricky thing about hats is they all look radically different according to your facial structure. So while the original hat was super cute, when it was paired with my face, it just wasn't working. But enough about me. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, consider hitting the subscribe and bell icon so you'll never miss my latest post. Thanks for watching! Goodbye!